Good morning, friends. So we're back to read Stella, Stella Endicott and the Anything is Possible poem. And she's written a poem. Uh, she laid on the couch with Mercy Watson and she wrote a poem and she is very excited about it. So, chapter 3. But it was not a wonderful day. And it was not wonderful because Stella made the mistake of letting Horace Broom read her poem. Oh, why did she do that? "Can I read your poem?" asked Horace Broom. And Stella thought that the poem was so beautiful, so perfect, that she couldn't resist showing it off in advance to Horace. She handed him her notebook. Said Horace Broom when he was done reading. "Pigs don't sit on couches." He was quiet for a minute. He scratched his head with his pencil. "And as far as I know, wizards don't play accordions." Stella said, "Mercy sits on the couch." Horace said, "Who is Mercy?" Stella said, "She is a pig." Horace Broom shook his head no. He said, "Not possible." Stella felt her face getting warm. "Yes," she said, "it is so possible. Her name is Mercy, and she sits on the couch all the time." "No," said Horace Broom. He pursed his lips. "Pigs don't sit on couches. They live on farms." We'll look at this picture. Stella is getting angry. Do you see like this jaggy line coming out of her head? Do you see how the illustrator made us know she's angry? "This pig lives in a house on my street. She lives with Mr. and Mrs. Watson, and she sits on the couch all the time." "You're just making things up," said Horace. "That means you're a liar." "I am not a liar," shouted Stella. "Miss Liliana said, Stella, remember, we speak softly in this class." Stella remembered. But she did not like speaking softly, and apparently Horace Broom did not feel like speaking softly either, because he shouted, "Pigs live on farms!" Stella shouted back, "Not this pig!" And then Miss Liliana said something terrible. She said, "Stella Endicott and Horace Broom, I am very disappointed in both of you. I would like you to go to the office to speak with Mr. Tinwitty." That's the principal. Look how they're yelling at each other. Mr. Tinwitty was the principal. He was a tall man. The rumor was that Mr. Tinwitty was fond of yelling loudly. "You want me to go to the principal's office?" squeaked Horace. "And me too?" said Stella. "Yes," said Miss Liliana, "both of you." She opened the door. "But I wrote an excellent poem about the Sea of Tranquility," Horace said to Miss Liliana. "Not now, Horace," said Miss Liliana. Stella and Horace walked through the door. Miss Liliana closed the door behind them. And then Stella Endicott and Horace Broom were alone together in the hallway. And here's a picture of them. They look scared, nervous. I wonder what it would be like if you went to Mrs. Flores' office. She is very nice. Sometimes you can visit her for good things, right? You never want to visit her because you're making a bad choice. "We've been cast into the wilderness," said Horace. His face was very pale. "Mr. Tinwitty is going to yell at us because that is what he does, and he will probably make a note in our permanent records because that is also what he does. And then I won't get into college, and if I don't get into college, I can't be an astronaut, and I want to be an astronaut." "You really want to be an astronaut?" said Stella. "Really? That's interesting. I don't know what I want to be. Maybe I want to be a storyteller. Or maybe I want to be a mathematician. I think I would be a good mathematician. I'm very good with numbers. But I would also be a good storyteller." "It doesn't matter. Everything is over," said Horace, and he put his head in his hands. "Everything is ruined." Maybe it's not that bad, said Stella. Maybe it'll all work out. Baby Lincoln says that in good stories, the characters face their fate with curiosity and courage. Maybe we should have some curiosity and courage. Doesn't that sound like a good idea? No, said Horace, it doesn't sound like a good idea. I don't know Baby Lincoln, and this isn't a story. This is our lives. A joyful sound came from inside Miss Liliana's room. The class was singing Jump Up and Do a Teeny Dance. They were singing very loudly. Listen, said Stella, they are singing my favorite song. I love to sing that song, she sighed. We will never sing again, said Horace. Stella suddenly remembered that they had been sent to the principal's office. She felt a sharp little ping of fear. She squared her shoulders. Curiosity, she said. Courage. She started walking down the hallway toward Mr. Tinwitty's office. This is the worst day of my life, said Horace Broom. He followed along behind her. Look at friends. Look at how he's walking. He is not having any courage. He feels very badly for shouting at Stella and arguing. Stella had to admit that it was turning out into a not very good day. If she had to describe it metaphorically, she would say it was a day that was opposite of a poem. Chapter 4. Who let you chickens out of the coop, said Mr. Murphy. Mr. Murphy was the maintenance engineer. He wore a name tag that said, Mr. Clyde Murphy, maintenance engineer. We're not chickens, said Horace. We're in trouble, said Stella. For what? Said Mr. Murphy. We were arguing very, very loudly, said Stella, and Miss Liliana does not believe in arguing loudly, so we have been sent to the principal's office. Uh-huh, said Mr. Murphy. And what were you arguing about? Pigs, said Stella. Uh-huh, said Mr. Murphy again. Pigs live on farms, said Horace. Some pigs live on farms, said Stella, and some pigs live other places, like houses, and some pigs who live in houses sit on couches whenever they feel like it. All right, said Mr. Murphy. He held up his hand. Okay. I've got the gist of things. Tell you what, let me show you chickens something. This here is the janitorial supply closet number 1. See how it says so right on the door? Mr. Murphy pointed at a sign that said janitorial supply closet number 1. Horace said, Is there more than one janitorial supply closet? Mr. Murphy narrowed his eyes at Horace. At this particular juncture, he said, there is only one supply closet. Horace Broom opened his mouth, and then he closed it again. So, said Mr. Murphy, continuing on with my point, I think that you two would find it instructive to look inside. Mr. Murphy unlocked the door and propped it open. Then he reached up and flicked a switch. The dark closet was suddenly illuminated. What do you think is in the closet? Stella saw the small space was filled with shelves, and the shelves were filled with toilet paper and paper towels and paint cans and little boxes of nails and screws and big bottles of cleaning fluid. That seems ordinary, right? We have closets like that at our school. Horace said, This is a very nice closet. Everything is extremely orderly and well organized. That is exactly the point I am making here, chickens, said Mr. Murphy. Everything is orderly and neat. Why? Because there are rules about where to put the supplies. You don't just throw things in here willy-nilly, do you? You have a pattern and you follow the pattern. And you put everything where it belongs. That's how it is with life. Do you get what I'm saying? Are you speaking metaphorically, Mr. Murphy? Said Stella. I am speaking janitorially, said Mr. Murphy. I don't think janitorially is a word, said Horace. Mr. Murphy turned his head slowly in Horace's direction. He said, What grade are you in? 2nd, said Horace. Right. Don't tell me what's a word and what isn't. Okay, said Horace in a very small voice. Mr. Murphy switched off the light. He said, You chickens need to remember that the rules are the rules. There's a pattern. You follow the pattern. Stella looked up at Mr. Murphy's face. It was a nice face. It was a kind face, Stella said. But Mr. Murphy, don't you think that anything is possible? Don't you think that anything can happen? Like pigs sitting on couches, said Mr. Murphy. That, said Stella, and lots of other things, things you hadn't even thought to imagine. Mr. Murphy nodded slowly. He said, that's true. There's always surprises. There's always things that show up when you don't expect them. There's patterns and there's surprises, and that's good. It makes things interesting. Horace said, well, we can't stand here and talk about surprises and patterns anymore because we are in big trouble and we've been sent to the principal's office. Right, said Mr. Murphy. Good luck, chickens. Wish you well. This book reminds me sometimes I would call you chickens. Isn't that funny? It's the same. Surprise and patterns, patterns and surprises, said Stella. It cheered her up to think about surprises and patterns and about courage and curiosity and also about how anything was possible, anything at all. She started to skip. You are skipping to your doom, said Horace. At the end of the hallway, a door opened and then slammed shut. A tall boy came walking towards Stella and Horace. Uh-oh, said Horace. What are you two babies doing alone in the big bad world, said the boy. Oh, he's not very nice. We're not babies, said Stella. We're in 2nd grade, and we're going to the principal's office. Ooh, the principal's office, said the boy. He stepped closer to them. He was so close that Stella could smell his breath. It did not smell good. Let me tell you, baby, something. You are never going to survive the principal's office. Mr. Tinwitty is brutal. He will make you cry. Yeep, said Horace. Stella's heart thudded somewhere deep inside of her. She thought, my heart is a rock that someone just threw into a cold lake. And then it occurred to her, that's a metaphor. And that thought cheered her up a little. Just ignore him, Horace, said Stella. Goodbye, said the boy as Stella and Horace walked down the hallway. He waved at them. No one's ever going to see you again. I want to go home, said Horace. He started to cry. Stella felt a tiny bit like crying too. What if they didn't survive the principal's office? What if no one ever saw them again? Well, there was nothing to do except be curious and courageous. Come on, Horace, Stella said. Let's see what happens next. Let's go and face our fate. Look, Horace is crying. All right, what do you think is going to happen in the principal's office? We're on chapter 5. I don't think that Mr. Tinwitty is going to be as bad as they think. Like, I think if you made a mistake and you accidentally made a bad choice, you were not using your smart brain, and your teacher said you have to go talk to Mrs. Flores about your behavior, I don't think that Mrs. Flores would yell at you. I think she would just talk to you about your choice and how you can fix it, right? And how you can stop and think. So I think their principal is not going to yell, but we'll see. I could be wrong. All right, friends. Well, I'm going to teacher school again today, and I'm in our classroom, or your old classroom, and I don't know what to do about it. It's a mess, but I'm not going to clean it today. Maybe if I get it all cleaned up, I'll take a picture for you guys. All right. I hope you have a great day. Bye, friends.